What do you really want to do? And what does your authentic self want to do? I'm going to do this and the chips can fall where they fall because this is who I am. That's what really helps you build your trust in yourself and the universe.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips. As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. Part of our manifestation process entails expanding past your limiting subconscious beliefs. Therefore, by tuning into this podcast with interviews from experts, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, scientists, and those with neural manifestation success stories, you're starting the process of expanding your subconscious in order to see to believe that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. We have an incredible process episode for you today with Tania Ali. It's so funny how this aligned because we just released our monthly check-in workshop, which I'll share more about with you guys. But Tania said one of the key things to manifesting her dream career pivot, starting her own business, moving through lack mentality, understanding her limiting beliefs in career, finding expanders, crazy expanders, and really cultivating her trust muscle was doing monthly check-ins with herself. And she was really already doing the thing that we at TBM intuitively wanted to support you guys with a workshop for going forward. I really love today's guest because she really embodies resilience and what it is like to really cultivate that trust muscle for yourself and allow the universe to show up for you time and time and time again. Plus, she's all really gone in and faced all of the layers and the blocks that have come up. And it's so funny because she said a friend of hers got her to sign up last year around the time of the manifestation challenge to manifest a partner together. And once she dove in, she was like, wait a second. I thought I was just manifesting a partner or a car, some material thing. I didn't realize I was upheavaling all of my limiting beliefs and blocks and going to transform my career and stop being a lawyer and going into this totally aligned career path and launching my own business. But she is so, so happy that she did. And we have a huge, huge, huge announcement for you guys. We have officially launched a brand new platform for our TBM members, and it comes with an incredible mobile app experience. This is honestly our biggest manifestation at To Be Magnetic. This is something that you guys have requested since the beginning of time, honestly. And now you have this really up-level digital experience. You can download the content. You can save the DIs for on the go. You can schedule reminders. You can schedule workshops. You can create playlists with your favorite DIs or workshop days, your favorite journal prompts. And we've added a brand new workshop, the monthly check-in, 2 new DIs, Trust Muscle, monthly check-in DI, and a new daily journaling check-in prompt as well. It's stacked, and we are so, so excited to be launching that to you guys. So if you are a current Pathway member, you should have received an email with the subject line TBM Mobile App Early Access. This contains instructions on how to sign up for the new platform so that you can access the app and move over from our old platform that we're going to be discontinuing over the next year. And when you make the switch from the old platform to the new one that has the app, you will be guaranteed to switch over at your current rate for another year. So if you're not ready to make that commitment, no worries at all. You can continue to enjoy your membership on the old platform until the end of term. But if you're ready to switch over early and utilize this amazing app, you can do so now. We have FAQs and videos and all the things in our community group of how to make this switch. We're trying to make it as smooth and easy as possible, but we are limited by some things. So Since this is an entirely new platform, you will need to create a new account. You can't just download the App Store, and log in with your current membership. You have to create a new membership portal. So your old login credentials will not work there in the current TBM app. But if you are not a member of the pathway yet and have been wanting to sign up, now is an incredible time. You can also download the app from the App Store to kind of get a sneak peek. What does it look like in there? How is it? And then you can go to the link on our website to sign up for it, create a login for the desktop version, and then use that same login to log into the app and get all access. We cannot wait for you guys to check this out. We are just so excited. And I really have to give such a big shout out to the entire To Be Magnetic team. We have been working nonstop to bring this to you guys. And we are just so excited to really up level your process with the manifestation work.
All right, on to the episode.
Today, we have Tania Ali. Welcome.
Hi, Jessica. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
It's kind of the perfect timing because we have a new workshop coming out called the Monthly Check-In, where we're really taking inventory of our process month to month. It's kind of like the next level of our full moon workshop, but it's, I'm telling you, going to be the key to like everyone staying regular with this practice. But it was so funny in our initial phone call, you were talking about how you made the practice your own. And one of the ways you make it your own is by this monthly check-in you're already doing with yourself.
Yeah, it was so funny that you were asking. And I was like, oh, I just do this monthly catch up with myself. I do a gratitude list. I take time to think of, when did I have pings? Did I listen to them? What happened? What happened if I didn't listen? Times where I trusted myself, trusted the flow, trusted the process, and just sat back and waited and saw what happened. And it helps me take accountability and just take awareness of the process on a shorter period of time. So it's not like, hey, I wrote this goal, I'm going to start this company. And in a year, be like, oh, okay, now let's sit down and see what happened. So yeah, it's something I've been doing probably since like month 3 of the process.
Wow. Okay, I have so many more questions along those lines, but let's jump in and get everyone your sun, moon, and rising.
Yes. Okay. So sun is Libra, moon is Gemini, and I'm a Leo rising.
Oh my gosh, you have so many things kind of in orbit and transition right now.
I do. It is quite the retrograde.
How do you feel like it's presenting for you?
So I definitely, after learning more about your rising moon and sun, see both the strong Libra in, being social, relationships, wanting balance, and then the Leo in just being very able to speak to many people, be extroverted, and be comfortable in that space. Starting and founding this business is definitely pressing the Leo rising because you have to be the face of your brand. You have to go out there and speak about it. So all those things that I would do to keep myself small before, I have to overcome them. I have to work through them, which the process has helped me a lot with.
Okay, so what is your cultural background and upbringing?
So I am Southeast Asian. I'm actually of Pakistani descent. I was raised Muslim, and that's a very specific culture and has definitely played into a lot of what you do for a living, how you view your life, how much work you put into everything. It definitely feeds into like the type A work mentality and overachieving and all of that. So that's been a big one also to work through that. You can give yourself space and time. A little background from my cultural upbringing. So my mom told me when I was young, I could either be a doctor or a lawyer. And I chose to be a lawyer. It was great. I did a lot as a lawyer. I still practice on the side. But when I started the process, and it's been 2 years, I think now, I started to go into all of your childhood memories and learning more about my inner child. And I realized like am I actually happy doing what I'm doing, or am I doing this because I was told it's the right thing to do? So fast forward a few months into this, probably about 5 months into the process, I just was like, wait, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I want to do what my authentic self really loves doing. And so I sat down and I thought about that and thought about what makes me really happy. And I decided to do a complete career pivot and start an e-com site for sustainable brands, which is, when we're going to the cultural aspect, not something that is viewed as a, I don't want to say acceptable career, but not like a sought after career. Whereas being a lawyer is like prestigious and all of the things that people want you to do. So the process, and actually the podcast and all of the expanders, that was a key thing for me, was finding expanders to move away from my cultural upbringing, what I was doing in my career, to who I authentically am.
It's so funny. Lacey always says one of the number one career shifts that she's seen people move from in the practice is from lawyers to something more aligned for some reason. Like a lot of people are lawyers who just, it's a lot of societal and familial programming that's the successful check mark. I'm curious too, because I think when a lot of people say like, oh, I was doing this for my parents or it wasn't really in alignment with me, I bet for a long time you didn't necessarily know it wasn't in alignment for you. Did some part of you think, yes, this is what I want?
Oh, 100%. I decided really young I was going to be a lawyer. So I was convinced this was my goal. It's really interesting you say that too, because when I started to do all of the work, I also saw how the creative things that I did, I always put them in this box of, you just do those. Those aren't creative. You host a dinner party. Okay, you're going to have a theme for food and you're going to, decorate and set it up this way. That's just something you do for a dinner party without acknowledging, no, that's actually something creative and it's something you're enjoying, and being authentic to that. So yeah, there is a lot of believing that you chose and you were the one that made the decision consciously, where it's really coming from subconscious programming.
100%. So, what is your authentic code? How did you start to differentiate? Okay, wait, maybe this isn't my actual desires.
So it was just going back to who you were as a child and what you enjoyed. And Gabby Bernstein made, maybe it was a snippet on Instagram or part of a podcast, or maybe it was in a book of hers that I read, but she had mentioned the three things that you talk about the most when you're with people are the three things that you truly are passionate about. And within one of them lies what you love. So that was like the tipping point of exploring it further. And then doing the process and going back to your childhood memories also brings up what you enjoyed as a child. And I'm going to be really honest, I've been doing this for a while and I have done all of the workshops numerous times and I keep going back. I get more and more of like, oh, wow, you really love doing that as a child. This e-com site is fashion brands. Since I was a kid, just loved dressing up. Fashion is a form of expressing who I am. And now I can actually acknowledge that and realize that that's my authentic code. That's who I am. It's something I truly enjoy.
Have you ever looked back on childhood photos or seen old journals or anything like that where it kind of starts to showcase? I just went home to help my mom move out of my childhood home. And I was like, dang, I wish everyone had like a box of stuff from their childhood, because I feel like it's so abundantly clear what your passions are, even from such a young age. I had all of my wish lists. I was like, I wish I was a witch and I had magical powers. And it's like, okay, no, I'm not a witch and have magical powers, but I work for a manifestation company, like pretty darn close.
That's pretty magical. You're on the right path. But I don't have a box, but I do remember every birthday I had as a kid and every time school was starting, I just loved going shopping and putting my outfits together and figuring out what I was going to wear and buy and have. And I also remember reading like very young. I don't know if everyone remembers it, and I don't even remember the name of the store, but there was a children's store and they would send a catalog and I would flip through the catalog and be like, "Oh, if I had this shirt, I would wear it like this. If I had this, I would wear it like that." I mean, it's not a box, but it's all in there. It's in my subconscious.
100%. And that's exactly that curation of the fashion too. It's so cool that now the career path you're in is completely in alignment with that.
It's really fun. It's exciting. It's very different. So it really challenges you to trust the universe, trust yourself, listen to your gut, and just follow the process. When you leave everything you know, and to say everything you know, also in an expander capacity, like I obviously as a child didn't know the law. I went to school for it, but I've been conditioned that that's what I know even though I'm learning all the time in that space, this is so foreign. And I have to remind myself, well, you once learned to crawl and then walk and then, run. So you can do this again.
Absolutely. So, what did that process of shedding that identity of a lawyer look like?
Okay. So this is where the expanders changed my life. So I went, up to the executive level in my legal career. So let's say I accomplished the highest. It was everything that I was supposed to do and thought I wanted to do. And then I have this idea and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to start Cadre Style, this ecom site, and we're going to sell sustainable clothes and we're going to help the planet, but I get to do the creative and fashion part. And I had all these thoughts like, you can't leave your career. You can't just leave everything you worked for. You can't leave what people admire or respect or think that you should be doing. You can't disappoint your parents. What are they going to say? And I remember listening to one of the podcasts about expanders, and I was like, oh, okay. I recall that Taryn Toomey, who started the class, a fitness class, I had known that like something happened in her life and she decided to go from a career in fashion to this workout studio. And I knew the story kind of in a summary format. Like I didn't really know what happened. And I'd taken her class. And for some reason, after the podcast, I was like, okay, I need to research Taryn Toomey. I had a ping. I have to read more about this woman. And so I go online and I read about it. And she was an executive at Dior and Ralph Lauren, and she left that role to start her own fitness company. And I was like, okay, if this woman can reach the height of her career and decide, well, I want to do something else for whatever reason, maybe she's done with one, maybe she wants to try something new, I can do that too. Why can't I? It's so easy to look at people at the pinnacle of their success and be like, oh, wow, like look at how accomplished they are and all that they have. And you forget all that they did to get there. And that's really where expanders play in a lot for me. So I know I told you this before and it's a funny one, but Miley Cyrus, Hannah
Mhm.
Montana. I used to watch her show when she first started on Disney. And now you see Miley Cyrus today and she's iconic, she's huge. But she started off with starting in acting, had a father who was known, but she still worked her way and did all this to become who she wants to be and what she wants to do. And I constantly go back to that.
Yeah, and she's also a great example of someone who probably felt like she was in this identity box, this box of Hannah Montana of very clean and PG, family friendly. And she's definitely her authentic code is like bucking the norm, pushing the limits, seeing how far you can take things, very like eccentric. And so Hannah Montana was not probably part of her authentic code as she got older. And so it's this very public example of someone needing to shed an old identity and step into something that's vastly different. And she's also great because not only did she shift into that new identity that was more authentic, but she got hate for it at first. There was a lot of people that were mad, up in arms, judgmental, saying bad press, whatever. And she kept going. And it turned out very successful for her, and she stayed true to herself and continues to reinvent herself and all of that. But it's a good example of like, okay, even if I make this shift and at first it's not received well or people's shadows come up or whatever, I can still keep going. It doesn't mean I need to stop and turn around and go back to what wasn't aligned before. It just means I need to continue to double down on the internal work, the external work, and then eventually you can find your space.
That's so true. Like and I remember exactly what you're talking about. It was like that MTV Awards that time
Mm-hmm.
you danced. Yeah, there's, even for me, when I first pivoted and I said, oh, I have this idea and I'm going to pursue it. Everyone's like, oh, well, why can't a bigger company just start selling sustainable clothes? Why can't someone else do it? It's not going to be successful. And you get a lot of that resistance. And I had to work through it and stay true to myself and say, okay, well, this is what I want to do. And another thing to work through was lack mentality. I sat down and I journaled and I thought about it. And I was like, okay, but there's department stores, for example, there's so many of them and they all do the same thing. One isn't getting run out by the other. They all coexist. When there's new fashion designers, we don't like drop off an old one because there's a list of how many can be present. It's just the subconscious mind has been fed this lack mentality, this you shouldn't just do it. It can't be easy, but you don't have to buy into that. And I did a lot of process work on lack mentality and where that came from for me. And a lot of it is just, living on this planet and what we're conditioned to believe. And so I was like, you know what? There's also space for everyone. There's space for me and what's meant to be, whether this is a learning for me, whatever I go through this business with, or it's the most amazing, successful part of my life that I truly enjoy and I'm so authentic in, we'll find out. And that's part of just flowing with it.
You have such a strong trust muscle. Like I can even hear it the way you're describing that, your perspective on it. How did you cultivate that trust muscle to know, okay, you know what? I need to trust my path. I need to trust this direction. I need to trust that there will be space for me in the market. And if they're not, all of this, it'll be the perfect learning lesson to direct me where I'm supposed to go. What steps or advice would you have for someone who is feeling like, oh yeah, a friend just said I shouldn't do it because there's no spot for my kind of company in the market. And now I actually am scared to put it out?
That's a great question. And to be really honest, in the beginning, I would call it like magic and woo woo, but I had the idea. I then was scared to do it like anyone. And again, maybe I listened to too many podcasts, but Gabby Bernstein had said, fear is just procrastination. And she made a statement like, if you're trying to do something, just write down what it is that you don't know about it. Just write your questions out. And at the same time, I listened to Lacey, and she was like, hey, if you want to do something new, make sure you have 6 months of savings to go through this process. And so those two combined, I had the savings thanks to the lawyer job. And then I wrote down, I remember that day, I sat at my table and I wrote down just questions like, I had no idea how you even get clothing into a store. First question, where do you get clothes from? And I was listing out questions and I went on Instagram and there was a story of there's a store in Soho and they had to close and the girl she was running it and her father had started it. And she wrote this whole thing about how her father started this business, I believe in the 70s. He was this Israeli man and the story of how the store started, it was really beautiful. And I thought, if he can do it, he can figure it out. Women's fashion, I can figure this out. And from that moment, I swear to you, every time I met someone, that person would be like, oh, I have to introduce you to X. And X would be the next piece of the puzzle that I needed. So to start, it was like, hey, I need to figure out how to put a business plan together for this space that again, lawyer, know nothing about fashion. And I was like, oh, how am I going to do this? I asked my brother, and he's at Columbia Business School at the time. And he's like, why don't you just ask a student from the business program if they would help you? And then I tell one of my close friends, and she's like, oh, I have this friend who has done this for other brands. She might be able to help you. And she is someone I'm really close to now. We've worked together on the financials, the project plan, the business plan, you name it. And then the next person I'm next is like, okay, I got to put together a board of advisors. The universe opened every door for me to have this board of incredible, talented women who are from the fashion space that I did not know before. And as that continued to happen, I became more and more trusting and doing my check ins and being like, okay, you just went with the flow and you trusted the universe and it's given you this. So you are supposed to explore this. That's how I look at it. Okay, you're supposed to do this. What you're supposed to do it for, I don't know. Could just be a life lesson, could lead you to something else, but we're getting on this ride. And it was step by step that trust muscle grew stronger and stronger. It's to the point now where like, oh, okay, I need to work on this for the business. I'll start getting emails from people being like, hey, do you need help with this? Let me introduce you to so and so. They work on this part. And I'm like, okay, literally just had this thought and now those doors are opening.
I mean, that really speaks to the alignment you're in for the company. Like, it clearly is something that is needing to come out in the world because you're getting such open doors to everything. But I also think it speaks to the expansion, the aligned action of even stating to a friend, to a brother, to an acquaintance, oh, I'm looking for someone who does business plans in the fashion space. Just stating your needs, stating what you're looking for, what you're working on. I think so many times people think they have to become a business plan expert, and they actually have way more resources at their disposal than they're even aware of. And networking can feel like, oh, I don't have any friends in that space, but you don't know who people know. You just got to get open and talking about it too.
You don't know. And you also like, you should always, and I do this in my check ins and just in everything I do, look back at what you've done in the past and what you're good at, what you've learned from that. Like, just because I'm like, oh, this legal career is something I'm shifting from, doesn't mean I didn't learn a lot there. Go out there and explore. Like, lawyers do a lot of research. Okay, great. Let's research this topic. Let's figure it out. We also will, whether it's hire other lawyers who are experts in the field or work within the business who the expert is in that department or that product. So that did actually play into this, right? The stuff that I had done, I think everything, and you guys say this too, is a building block.
100%. There's no, even if you're switching completely different career paths like you're doing, nothing that you've learned thus far isn't going to help you excel in the next chapter. Everything is really helping set you up for that next thing, and in such a cool, nuanced way, because now you have someone who's launching a business in fashion with a lawyer background. And look at all the like amazing perks or insights, perspectives you have from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like my monthly check-ins, just check in on like what you've done, what you know, what's helped you. You have to also learn to trust yourself.
And what about the unblocking piece? Because it also sounds like expanders were finding you, the pings to take the aligned action was coming through clearly. So, what were some of the blocks that you needed to work through to get things moving?
Oh my God, so many blocks. I mean, I'm still working through a lot of them. One of the big ones for me, and this is really interesting, is money. And I didn't realize or think consciously that that was a block for me. I did early on do every part of the program, which included money, because love and money, are, as you guys say, part of the same energy. I was raised in a home, we were well off. I would even say now, actually, in the layer I'm in, my parents spoiled us. We got any toy we wanted. I wanted a car. Went to the car dealership and it's like, what color do you want? What features do you want? I want this bag. I want this. I want that. There was never a shortage of money and things, but there was two blocks for me that were huge. One, I noticed that with my brother, he was able to expand and manifest at a much bigger monetary level than I was. Like I always had this ceiling. And when I was doing the work, I realized, oh, you've subconsciously decided like a lawyer makes X dollars, a lawyer lives a certain type of life, and this is the box. And it's a nice box and it's got a bow on it. That's where you live. You aren't going to move past that. And so I had to work through that. Then I had realized another one was I truly believe people with wealth, a lot of wealth, were evil because you always see in the media people exploiting people, businesses that make a lot of money, even in fashion, like not paying their garment workers, just so much noise around how it's negatively used and abused and greed and power. And you don't hear the stories about people doing good or donating or helping others. And one of the expanders I used there was Oprah. She's always helping and giving, and she can live her life and have her things, but she can also help other people. It doesn't have to be evil. It doesn't have to be greed based. And just in society, I realized we all turn, or most people turn to the negative. Like I remember something terrible had happened, and Bethany Frankel took a private jet and went and took supplies to this location to help the people on the ground and give them food and things that they needed. And I was telling a coworker, and his response was like, yeah, well, she gets a tax break for that. And I was like, okay, but she's actually still going there, taking her
Doing it. Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I haven't moved a muscle. This is in no way inconvenienced my existence, except I feel bad. And so I just uncovered all these layers of how I view money as a negative to greed and to exploitation and just people saying like nothing's ever good enough. And then we're now in a third layer, which is great because this is probably I think this is now the third full time I'm working through the money workshop. Is I realized that my parents used money to show love. So I do have this subconscious resentment of money doesn't equal love. And so I have to work through that to, well, no, it's also, used for things you need. It's used for protection. It doesn't have to be used in a way that, because going into super inner child work, like my parents both were not emotionally available. So they used money to say, oh, well, we're giving you this, we're giving you all these things. But there wasn't like the I love you and I'm proud of you and all those things that as a child I wanted or needed.
Oh my gosh, those are so good and so powerful. And I think very, very common blocks and dynamics. And one thing I was just thinking, and we had talked about this on our phone call, but this idea that it's almost like with that lack mentality that money's bad and money's evil. If there is a part of you that still genuinely doesn't feel at the level of financial stability that you enjoy or want, even if you do think it's evil, right? Even if you do think it's bad, if you're feeling like, oh, darn, I wish I just had a little bit more so I could do this or this with. And let's say this or this is some of your authentic code. Why put yourself in a place of wanting, needing, that lack mindset? Why not just go out there, get the money, and then decide if it's for you or not? Why do we think we have to say, oh, yeah, but it's bad to want that or it's bad to achieve that, so I'm not even going to try, even though part of me does want it? Why don't you try? And then maybe when you're there and you're at that level and you've manifested the level of wealth that feels good for you, then you can do good in the world, do the donations, make it not evil and change the narrative. I feel like so many times people reject things because they're afraid of the judgment around them without actually being honest with themselves that it's something they want.
Exactly. If something isn't working, I will sit down and say like, hey, are you resisting something? And if so, what is that? And so that's where that money being evil blocks came out. I was raised with having all my monetary needs met. I thought I had a healthy relationship with money. To be honest, the first time I looked at the program, I was like, oh, I don't need to do the money one. I'll just do love and do some inner child work and shadow work. But no. You may think that you have a healthy relationship with something, but then when you're in it, you're running a business, you're like, okay, what am I resisting here? Because it's something.
What did you find yourself resisting in the beginning processes?
Watching the company grow and resisting how big it could be and how many people's lives you could touch, how much product you could sell. It was just, I'm doing it, but why am I not seeing myself as the manifested version of success that I've put down on my manifestation list? Because all the doors have opened. We talked about that. Everything's flowing. It just something internally, like you start to feel it. You're like, something's a little bit off.
What do you think changed once you started working through those blocks?
More acceptance. Just being more trusting of like, okay, this is the gap or where I want to spend the money. Let's spend it and let's work on that part and it will all flow. And sitting down and saying, okay, you've gotten to this point in your life, not even the business, everything I've done in my life, every trip I've wanted to take, anything like wanted to get a car, it's always worked out. And sat down and said, okay, well, why has it worked out? And this is your monthly check-in, right? Because I never questioned it. When I don't question it, I don't resist it. Why am I resisting this one? It's also fear of being seen. So that's another one we're working through, the Leo rising, she has to rise.
Yes. I think that's a big theme in the community. I've seen a lot lately. How do I feel safe to show more of my true self out there?
Yeah, and I think we're lucky now where people are a lot more authentic and honest, especially on social media platforms, and they're calling out the things that we've learned growing up, but that don't make sense. And first of all, thank all of you who made statements like that, whether it's about body positivity or photoshopping, anything. It really is empowering. So it is, I would say, easier because you're not the first person. You're now someone joining this movement.
That's a really good point. Because I feel like even 5 years ago, it was very, very different. And now it's really moved into a lot more transparency.
Yeah, it's beautiful as a collective.
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily, in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code, EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the Pathway. Again, that's all caps, EXPANDED, EXPANDED.
And as you guys know, we have upgraded to a brand new platform with an incredible mobile app. Be sure to sign up for the new platform in the link in our show notes, and then you can use that login to access the new app.
Okay, now back to the episode.
talk about what happened with some of your bigger tests.
So one of the biggest tests in the business that I faced to date was, I had the money to run the business, and we came down to literally the last marketing dollar. I don't know what day of the week, but let's say it's a Tuesday. And I was like, great. So I can operate the business, but I can't market the business. So how am I going to do this? And I was like, okay, don't panic. I even went and played the lotto. Like, okay, the universe, like, we're not going to panic. It's going to deliver. And for some reason, I had no resistance and so much trust that everything would work out. And probably because up until this point, every door has opened. And I'm sitting there, and you guys can make fun of me, but I hadn't done my taxes yet. So I was putting those papers together. And my mom gives me a piece of paper with a 401k I forgot I had, first of all. Second, did not know how much money was in there. And I was like, oh, wait, can I just take some of this out and invest in my business? And I'm not giving anyone financial advice. It's probably the worst financial idea. But I was like, okay, this is the universe giving me what I need. It's enough to run us for at least 6 months of the, projected marketing plan that we had from the onset. And the universe did deliver. Now, universe, I'd really love to win the lotto, but
Well, you'll have to do your taxes early then if you get that coming through.
yeah, I'll have to be on time next year. But yeah, it was the biggest test because I was sitting there and I was like, okay, well, is this the end? Is this the lessons you learned and we're just gonna walk away?
That's so wild that it was like really at that point of like, we literally don't have a dollar to market this business. We are really leaning on the trust muscle here. How do you pull through? And the one thing you had mentioned too is like, just because you are pushed to your limit or your threshold of like, okay, we're really having to lean on this trust muscle here. It's almost like that magic dark period doesn't mean that your emotions were like, I'm chill, I'm good. You were probably a little bit panicked at various states.
Oh yeah, of course I panicked. How am I gonna tell everyone? I have people working for me. What am I gonna say? Like, cool, we can keep working. That part of the budget exists, but that's it. We can't really tell people what we're doing. Or now I need you to go be a door-to-door salesman. Like, what was gonna happen? It was scary for sure. And a lot of times you can't do anything, right? You're just like, okay, well, what are my options? And in that magic dark period, in that period of stillness, in that period that nothing's happening, you just sit and wait. And then once it does happen, this is amazing. And then again, going back to your monthly check ins, put down all the feelings you had, put down the moments you were like, okay, this will work, or the moments you were scared, and remember how you felt and how you dealt with it, because that's what really helps you build your trust in yourself and the universe.
Such good advice. Because I think people, assume that, okay, being in trust means that you are never nervous about it. You're not fearful. You don't have anxiety. You're not panicked. Yes, those emotions and those feelings come up and you should look at them and feel them, but you're not letting them take you over to where it's going to cause you to settle or backpedal. I can feel really nervous and just listen to my pings, journal through my feelings, and trust any aligned action that comes to me that I need to take to move through it.
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of meditation, and I definitely am like, let's journal out this feeling. Let's not keep it in there. Because if you keep it in there, it's going deep into your subconscious somewhere, and you'll have to work through it later.
I like that mentality. It's like, okay, I feel it. Let's go into it now.
Yeah. And I mean, also, you're just human. You are human. You can't, and a lot of like, I've had other things that have happened in the business early on that were a terrible experience, and it didn't work out in my favor. It actually cost me a lot of money and a lot of anxiety and headache. But after, and this wasn't like the day after, I'm like, oh, yeah, that was fine. Like, I learned things from it. It took me a few months to process and to be like, okay, what did you learn from this? And also be kind to yourself and forgive yourself. Like, you didn't know. I feel like it's been spoken on the podcast a lot too. Like things happen that aren't always easy or fun or nice. You are going out there and doing something new and trying something. So you will at times fail. And I've heard other people say this. I think Blake Lively just said this recently, but failing is something you're going to do. It's how you learn. There are things that you're not going to do them perfectly. And that's where you learn your lessons.
I think that accepting failure and cultivating resilience is some of the best ways that you can prepare yourself to be seen, to jump off a cliff, to start a new business, change career paths, even enter a relationship when it feels scary. Even, I want to say, even when I have moments of failure, because I think everyone has moments of failure, even when I have them, I will be okay. And it doesn't mean that everything's wrong, and the judgment and fear that comes up around that, the shame that comes up around that. The feeling of shame of failure is not going to kill me. It's actually going to make me more resilient, broaden my skill set, know how to do things next time. And the more we can kind of face those failures, I think I heard a CEO, I forget, it must have been on Tim Ferriss or something, but he was like, my number one business tip is to fail and fail sooner and just jump into those failures so you can learn as much as you can at the beginning. And that way you're not so afraid of them. You're not afraid to take those chances or those risks.
First of all, I love what you just said. And there is so much shame around failure, but he's right. Learn it early on, because when you're smaller and you're doing something at a smaller scale and you don't do it perfectly or you fail at it, okay. But then the next time you do it, when it is bigger, you will know what to do and you will know what to look out for. And I call them like little blessings in disguise. Let's say it's like you're doing a photo shoot and your budget is $10,000 and you fail, versus your budget is $1 million and you fail. It's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bigger impact. One of the things, this is so strange and maybe it's just funny, but like in my legal career, two things. First, being a lawyer prepared me to know, because our job, like I worked in-house for companies, is you essentially have to fix things once they've quote unquote failed or broken. So I've been trained and conditioned that there's always a solution. And I think that definitely helps when you are starting a new business or doing something different. Even if it doesn't work the way we thought it was going to work, we will figure this out. The other thing that I've always told myself, probably the past 10 years, and it's so random that it's a fashion person, but I read somewhere that Marc Jacobs was fired from his first job at Perry Ellis. And then look at Marc Jacobs and what he's done in fashion. You could have easily been like, well, I got fired from this job, so like this isn't the career for me. And you could have taken that shame, or you could be like, no, this is my authentic self. This is what I'm doing and no one can stop me.
I love that. And I think that is that key part. Is this failure redirection in a different path that is more aligned? Or is this helping me bolster my trust muscle towards the path that I know is deeply aligned for me?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And that I think is sometimes really hard to decipher.
Extremely.
If the failure is like redirection, then you'll continuously, a little bit after that, keep getting blocks. The road won't be smooth. And you have to decipher whether those things are, just lessons where you have to unblock something and you're resisting, or they're actual blocks saying like, warning, warning. Matthew McConaughey's book, right? Like green light and red light. He talks about, is it a red light or is it a green light to go? You have to spend a lot of time with yourself.
You really do. And really understanding what are your underlying subconscious motivations driving you. Even you being a lawyer, you probably got a lot of green lights in the path of being a lawyer. You had support from family. All of that could have checked the boxes. But internally, if your body is like, this is not for me, there's your red lights.
Oh my God. And like Lacey talks about tests, right? Like when you put on your manifestation list, I want X, and X has 5 things. but you get something that has 3 things or 4 things. Is it a test or is it this is what I should be doing? And so when I first was like, okay, I want to start this company, I want to transition, I definitely had tests. I had people throwing things at me that were in the legal space that were like, wow, no one offered me that before, or like, that's such a cool opportunity. But I was like, no, you're being tested. What do you really want to do? And what does your authentic self want to do? Stay the course.
Yeah. What were the things that you had on your list that were helping you decipher? Yeah, this is like closer to my list, but it's not ultimately the thing.
So leaving that whole field, that's not on my list. My list was, let's start this business. The reason I started the process, and this is a funny story, is I had a friend who was like, we're both single. We're going to manifest boyfriends. So she's like, I've been listening to these podcasts and doing this program. You need to start it. 3 days later, I start it. And then my whole life changes. Okay. We uncovered a lot. It was not, I was like, okay, you told me I was going to manifest a boyfriend, maybe a car, but like here I am reliving childhood trauma, finding out the narcissism in my family, like just so much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that aspect of it.
But yeah, so my list was to have a successful business that inspires people and helps heal the planet. I'm a manifesting generator, so a lot of times it's hard for me to put detailed pieces of what I want. It's more like, here's the overarching piece. I wanted to move to LA. That was on my list. I did move to LA. It was short lived, only for 3 months, but I still love LA. And I got to do it and I got to experience it. Now it's like, I wake up and I told you this, I don't call it a to-do list, but it's like a mini manifestation list for the day.
Oh, yeah. Talk about this.
So there's like overarching, okay, successful business, inspiring others. Now on my list is a home that has views of the ocean because I really just love having that access to nature and it calms me. I also want a new car, guys. A lot of things are very material right now.
Own it. Enjoy it. You need it, and you need it for your support of the new business.
Yes. But what I do is I have that overarching manifestation list. But to get from point A to point B, you don't go from A to B. You have so many small things that happen to get you to the top of that big mountain. And so every day I wake up and I say, okay, what am I going to do today? What do I want to do today? What do I want to accomplish? And that's my manifestation for the day. And that's where like I want to work on ads today for the business. That's my goal. So all of a sudden, things will start popping up in that space. One time it was literally an ad on Instagram because I was blocked on, okay, we're doing this sale. How do I do it? How do I say 2 things I want to say without it being overly wordy? And like, I was just stuck. And then I go on Instagram and there's an ad and they've done it beautifully. And I'm like, oh, okay, you can say 2 things and you just have to figure out at what point you want to say one and the other. And I was like, thank you, universe, for sending me that. And that's my mini manifestations. And they come in faster and faster.
I love that too, because it's, you're setting one sort of intention for the day that you're going to co-create with the universe on. What's that one thing that today I'm going to get support with the universe in bringing into the world or whatever it is. And then every single day you're building your trust muscle.
Yeah. And maybe it helps me cut out a lot of noise. It helps me a lot. It makes things easier also. And yeah, it builds trust. It helps me see resistance. It helps me hear pings because it's just that piece for the day.
Yeah, it's not like you're writing down 45 things. Even if you do accomplish 45 things, you're just saying, if I were to just accomplish this one thing today, that's a success because that was my mini manifestation.
It's fun because being a New Yorker, being from a South Asian household, being the oldest overachiever from the narcissistic part of what I lived through, it was really hard for me to let go of having these giant to-do lists and these like, you must accomplish 25 things today that do this, this, and this. And part of what it is on a daily basis, it changes and it's very much more aligned with how I'm feeling. So if I'm feeling really creative today, that's where I'm going to put my energy and that's what I'm going to manifest for the day. If I'm feeling very like today is a go, go, go day, let's do those things that just need quick rapid fire. Let's get them out.
I love that. Kind of going back to some family stuff, having that pressure of, okay, you have to be a doctor or a lawyer. That's perceived, within the family or and culturally as the success marker. When you decided to move on from being a lawyer and start this business, how did your family and those around you react? And how did you start to set boundaries if it wasn't the most supportive thing?
That's a great question. And for me, actually, the boundary work started first. It was week 3 of the program that I set boundaries with my family because I had done some inner child work and was understanding a lot more of what had happened. And I just needed space to work through all of that, figure out who I am. So the boundaries came first. And it gave me a lot of strength because once I came out of, I'll call it my cocoon phase, basically limiting everyone and everything around me, including friends, till I was in a place that I felt healed, it was much easier to go back and say, this is who I am. I'm doing this business. This is what I want. And over time, and again, it's not like you come out of that and you're like, oh cool, I don't care what anyone says or thinks. Of course, I was still living small and doing it slowly and slowly. I did it step by step. So first step was posting on Instagram about sustainability and what I'm actually passionate about and telling people about sustainable clothes. I wouldn't have done that before. Wearing things that my family wouldn't have permitted me to wear and just being like, you know what? I'm going to do this and the chips can fall where they fall because this is who I am. And then what I realized, and it's really interesting, is because I was so strong in what I wanted to do with my family, they didn't resist. I mean, maybe internally they're like, oh God, this girl is out of her mind. But they've been really supportive since I just said, this is what I'm doing.
It's kind of like a catch-22 because you can never change other people. It all has to be their own internal thing. And you can't want to change yourself or set boundaries in order to manipulate or change other people to change their behavior. You have to do it for you, regardless of how they show up. But I have found that when you do set those energetic boundaries, you work on the negative self talk or the fear of setting boundaries with family, whatever it is. Once you do that internal stuff, it actually does wind up changing how the other person shows up. But it only really works if you're only doing that work for yourself and not in order to change them.
That's so true. Yeah. And in that work, I also realized like you have to take accountability and ownership of what situations you put yourself in. So part of that can be, am I putting myself in a position where I am going to care what you think about me? Or am I just putting myself out there and I'm not concerned with how you feel about it, person X or Y?
How did you cultivate that? One of my friends is trying to launch their TikTok and they wound up blocking one of their siblings because they just knew they were going to make comments and kind of throw them off course. And they're like, okay, when I first start this, I don't want any feedback. I'm just going to block them for a while. So, what type of ways did you curate that space for yourself?
I love that and I commend her. And I essentially did the same thing when I set my boundary with my family. I basically was not seeing them until I was in a place that I was strong enough to be who I wanted to be and see them. I would say yes, like you definitely, if there are people out there that make you uncomfortable, that give you an ick, that you don't want to hear what their thoughts are, you don't have to let them into your space. You aren't here to make other people happy. You're here to make yourself happy. And it takes a lot of practice. And again, like it's step by step, whether it's posting an Instagram first on something that's, important to me. I would recognize that things would happen and I would feel, whether it's like a environmental catastrophe or a political event, and I would have a lot of thoughts and feelings, but I would be too scared to express them. And I had to slowly work through things. And what I would do is just be like, okay, just post this or just say this to someone about your thoughts. Just do it once and see how you feel. And one time becomes a second time, becomes a third time. And you again get stronger in who you are and trusting yourself.
And I think there also becomes a clarity of what do I like actually experience joy and excitement by sharing? And what am I sharing out of scarcity, lack, whatever? You start to really curate those moments in your gut where you're like, oh, yeah, for sure. I definitely want to share about this. Because I think in the beginning, you can kind of talk yourself out of it and you're like, do I really care? Or does this matter? But then you really start to connect with that gut feeling of like, nope, this is right. This is what I should be sharing.
Yeah, and your authentic self and like what you truly care about. Also, like your ego. Are you just saying this because you want people to know, like, yeah, I know about that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you actually care about that?
And that feels different. It feels different in your body. It feels different in your mind. The impulse to do it is different. One is a calm, like, ooh, I can't wait to share joy, excitement. And the other is like oh, I feel like I should do this. Or, yeah, I'll do that. And it's kind of a rushed, impulsive thing.
You're right. It should be very natural to who you are and your authentic self.
Oh, so true. What would you say, I guess, is the most powerful mindset shift that you've cultivated since doing the work? What is the one thing where you're like, wow, I'm so glad I shifted from that mindset to this one?
There's so many, but some of the big ones, I definitely used to have a lot of anxiety. So one of the mindset shifts I do is when I get nervous and you can like still feel it in your body, I'll be like, you're not nervous, you're excited for this opportunity or you're excited to see what this is. That's a huge mindset shift and it shifts your entire experience from like, oh my God, I'm like nervous and scared to like, oh, I'm so excited to do this. I mean, we talked about this one. Is this a lesson? Is this a test? Or am I actually blocking something? And so I've shifted to become much more aware every time I'm doing something. If it's not working, why is my manifestation not working? If it's the manifestation for that day or the overarching larger one, why am I not getting there? That definitely helps me work through a lot of things.
Yeah, and in that vein, looking at that resistance, am I resisting this? Why do I feel like I can't go down this rabbit hole right now, or it doesn't feel like flow? That's such a key thing to really look at. Sometimes it could be an off day, but if it's something that's coming up again and again, why? Why is that coming in? And just getting curious with that behavior too.
Now also a bigger mindset shift is that before it would just I would be on like go 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 mentality of like got to get things done, got to do these, got to make decisions. And now sometimes you just know in your gut, yeah, that's not what I want to do or I do want to do that. But instead of being like you need to make a decision right now, I'll be like when I have a moment to pause and sit with it, that's when I'm going to make the decision. And it's okay if it takes a few days. I give myself that space and that's definitely changed a lot of things for me because you also won't just do things you don't want to do or that might not be right or good for you or good for your path. It helps you understand yourself and it helps you do things that you're supposed to be flowing with.
To rush is lack mentality. It's saying, I have to do this now. Otherwise, what? I'm not good enough. I'll lose out. All of the, if I don't do this fast enough or quickly enough, is all a lack mindset. All of those things are like, I lose it. I miss opportunity. I'm not good enough because I can't do it fast enough. I get fired, whatever. And the abundant mindset on the reverse of that is, it will align at the correct time for me. I will get the intuition when I need it, the line action when I need it. You really get full abundance when you take that pause that you need internally.
Yes, I love that. That is so true. And you just continuously stay in a state of flow.
100%. Okay, last question. For the person who has a lot of conditioning from their family, a lot of pressure from their family to maintain a certain career path, and they are very afraid in shifting it into something that they authentically love. They're really afraid of, rejection, extended family or society, etc. What tip would you give them to start cultivating that inner trust muscle and to even process some of the shame they might feel for changing careers?
Expanders, 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 expanders. I would find expanders that are similar to your cultural upbringing or your career path and see what they've done. If they're out there, listen to them. I mean, I went and heard J-Lo speak once and I thought like, oh, wow, J-Lo, like this is what she's wanted to do her whole life. And she's so great at it and never thought twice like her family wouldn't have supported her. And she spoke about how when she first told her mom she wanted to be a dancer, her mom basically kicked her out of the house and she couch surfed for a while until she got her first job. There are so many more people than you think that have gone through what you've gone through and have made those decisions, and they are hard, they are uncomfortable, but look to those expanders because it will give you so much comfort and it will also show you that it can be done. It's out there because it has happened. And then the other advice is take it step by step. You don't have to be like, hey, I'm quitting my job as a doctor and I'm going to be a TikTok influencer tomorrow. You can start to test out the thing you want to do, start to test out saying it out loud to people that you feel safe with. And over time and slowly, you will build your own courage and your own trust in yourself, and you will get there. Also, coming from a culture where everybody is always talking about people and like what they're doing, people will always talk. No matter what you do, they will have something to say about it. And celebrities are the greatest expander of that. People always have comments, and you can either live by their comments or you can live by your own happiness.
Oh, great quote. Amazing. Thank you so much, Tania. This has been so powerful, so expansive. There's so many tips and actionables, and we'll tag you on Instagram for anyone who wants to connect. And so excited to see what's next for your business.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a pleasure, and I love speaking with you, and I love the program. And anyone who's listening, if you haven't done it, please do it. It will change your life.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
I hope you guys enjoyed that episode as much as I did. I really, really loved hearing Tania's story and thought it was so powerful and motivating. One question and tip I kind of wanted to share at the end of this episode, because I got this a lot, is, I've fallen off of regular practice. I don't really know how to jump back into the TBM work. I'm not really sure where I'm at with everything going on. And I wanted to give you just a couple of bullet points of places that you could start if you want to just make a really fun, actionable new practice again. So one, with this new launch of the daily check-in journal prompts, they are inside of the daily practice workshop under the journal prompt section. That would be my go-to as the easiest way to just check in on a regular basis. I keep my notebook next to my bedside, and before I go to bed, I do these journal prompts. They're super short and easy, and all you're doing is really just tracking. Did any pings come up today? Any tests, any triggers, expanders, etc. Really hunker down into the essence of anything and be aware of what is happening around you. All of it is connected to something. So I would just start taking inventory. What's coming in? Am I getting pings, line action to do, test triggers? Where am I at with my self-worth on things? The second thing I would say is look at your last manifestation list. Does that need to be updated? Do you need to update your authentic code? Maybe just start with some of the basics and really look at what have I called in and what do I want to call in? The monthly check-in workshop is also great for this as well, because you can take deep inventory of everything going on, but it really just keeps you in touch with your practice. What are you co-creating with the universe? I think so many times we kind of set our lists, forget it, and then maybe we come back to it when we're faced with a test or something big, but we don't really know what's happening on a regular basis. And every single day we're co-creating and creating new experience. And just like Tania said in the episode, she creates a daily manifestation list. Like, what does she want to manifest that day? Even if all she wants to manifest is like having a great moment with my cup of coffee or walking outside in nature, whatever that manifestation is, at least she has a strong intention. And I think bringing intentionality back to your daily life is going to help connect you back with the practice. And then after you kind of see what's going on, you'll start to notice, okay, I'm getting tested here, triggered here. What pain point is this touching on? And that's when you can start to pull up a couple different of the deep imaginings that feel like they might help with this and just start knocking them out. Do maybe 2, 3, 4 a week and really hammer out the core root of those tests and triggers. So those are just some easy ways you can start incorporating the work into your daily schedule. And stay tuned for December because we are going to have another incredible manifestation challenge, really walking you through this process step by step in the most effective way. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday, and we will see you next week.